Hello there, football fans, and welcome to Fast Money Football Friday edition. I'm James Sharman, and Albert will be here shortly as well to break down some of these weekend's games. It has been a really strange week with some really strange stories, Amongst, of course, lots of football, but perhaps none stranger or more disturbing than Kurt Zouma and the now infamous cat video. The Sun, which is, let's be honest, a rag and loves these types of stories, posted a post that his brother, Kurt Zuma's brother, had posted from his house where he was kicking his cat, this Bengal cat, slapping it in the face, yelling at it. Apparently, the cat had broken a vase or damaged some property. He was really upset, and it was pretty disturbing, the video. But the fallout, as you can imagine, has been violent against Kurt Zouma because obviously you can't hurt animals, right? You can do what you want to people, it seems these days, but animals, forget about it. And as such, Kurt Zouma has been fined £250,000 by his club West Ham, reportedly. Adidas has said, thank you and farewell, you're not one of us anymore as well. Now, add in that he played this week in a 1-0 win against Watford and was booed just mercilessly throughout that match. But the question was, should he have played to begin with? Well, sponsor Vitality, who have $1 million sponsorship with West Ham, have now suspended their sponsorship because they're so appalled that West Ham would play this player. So looking forward now, at Leicester on Sunday, will Kurt Zouma play? Listen, he's one of their best players. He's probably their best defender. And that's what Dave Moyes said. He played him against Watford. Listen, we need points. We're in the race of top four football. We've got to play our best players. But still, it wasn't great optically, to say the very least. So will Zouma play? I can't imagine he's going to play, to be honest with you, this weekend against Leicester. He hasn't been dropped officially, mind you. But you do wonder, is that punishment enough now? I mean, that's £250,000. He's been just eviscerated throughout all of Great Britain. His teammates have questioned him. His French coach, Didier Deschamps, says, it has happened that when players have made mistakes, I leave them out for a while. I won't change my way of progressing for the next list. So is he going to be dropped by his national team? Really interesting. Oh, by the way, his brother, who taped this thing and posted it, like what are you thinking? Yohan Zouma, he plays with Dagenham and Redbridge in the National League. He's now been suspended as well. So it's a story to watch. Will he be suspended? He actually might even face a conviction and potential jail time in France as well. But you do wonder, at what point is the punishment enough? The cat, by the way, seems to be okay. It's been taken away by the RSPCA. It could be returned to the family, and it's a family cat. We should mention that as well. I watched this video, and it's horrible to watch, but at the same time, it's not as if he punted the cat over the roof of the house. All right, it was awful. I'm an animal person. I don't want to see that, but at the same time, sometimes we've got to get a bit of a breath and say, okay, he's been found out, he's been punished. Now let's move on. But that's purely subjective. His teammate, by the way, Mikel Antonio, he was asked while leaving training this week, about the incident. And Antonio responded oddly by saying, let me ask you this. Is what he did worse than racism? And I get what Antonio is trying to do here, but it's so irrelevant. Two very different issues. So I understand what his teammate's trying to do to back his teammate, but at the same time, I think you need to realize that these are two very different issues. They're both bad. Okay, they can both be bad. West Ham, by the way, sitting in fourth place in the table, which normally would be amazing, right? But it means so little at the moment because there's so many games in hand throughout the table. This whole COVID situation with the games being postponed means that the table's a lie right now in most facets of it. We don't know who's going to finish where because West Ham's in fourth place, but they played many more games than Spurs, for example. It's really, really weird and making outright odds really difficult right now. So let's look at the table here, shall we? Briefly here. I mean, so Man City obviously in first place, 9 points up on Liverpool, but they played a game more than Liverpool. So say the Reds win that game, then beat City later this season at City. It's 3 points, and maybe there's still a title race. But the battle for fourth place is mentioned. West Ham on 40 points. They played 24 games. Spurs sitting in seventh place, 4 points back. I played 21 games. So Spurs, despite blowing it this week against Southampton, really might be the favourites to finish top four right now if all goes according to plan. But the real issue, the real excitement, I think, comes from the other end of the table. All right. The race to avoid the bottom three, because again, games in hand mean so much. Burnley on 14 points, 20 games played. All right. 20. All right. You look at, for example, Brentford, who are now in 14th place, just 6 points safe. They've played four more games than Burnley. Even Newcastle sitting now in 17th place, they played two more games than Burnley and are just 4 points up on Burnley. So Burnley, don't rule them out just yet. But then you look at the table and you realize it's February, right? February what is it, the 10th round there? 11th? They got one win on the season. One win on the season. So it's a good chance Burnley could be crashing down this season. However, right now, it just makes no sense. Watford on 22 games played, Norwich on 23 games played in 18th place. I don't know. It's really confusing. It's the weirdest season. I've watched this game my entire life. I've covered this game for 20 odd years. I've never seen a table so confusing as it is right now. As for the league championship, let's go down there a bit, Shay, because that's not quite as insane. There's also games in hand issues there, but not quite as bad. Derby County, though, they truly are insane, right? Right now, they are 4 points from safety. They're second last in the league. So 4 points from safety, not a great season, right? Well, if you consider that Derby County had a 20-point deduction before the season through their punishment for financial issues, 20 points. And under Wayne Rooney, they have now clawed their way to within 4 points of safety. They could survive, which is just incredible. Wayne Rooney is really as hot a young manager as he was as hot a young player at the moment. He even turned down an interview with Everton in January because he's so loyal to Derby County. That being said, given their issues, I dare say that this summer he'll be gone. He'll either walk away or they'll be relegated and it's time to move on. And I tell you what, Wayne Rooney could well be in the Premier League next season because I think a big club will take a chance on him because he's done a great job so far. But wherever Wayne Rooney is, not far behind is controversy. There's a new Amazon documentary coming out, which I have to see, about life with the Rooneys, Wayne and Colleen, and their entire life together. And in that documentary, he talks about using longer studs, cleats, than usual in a particular match against Chelsea back in 2006 because he couldn't bear to see Chelsea win the title. So he wanted to hurt someone. Now, in the end, he hurted. He hurt John Terry. So I know the sympathy isn't quite perhaps where it should be. Hurt him. He missed a couple of games. JT was fine. Chelsea won the championship. But the fact that he's admitted to trying to hurt someone means that the FA is now investigating Wayne Rooney for something that happened in 2006. So I'm not sure I agree with that. You know, statute of limitations and all that. No harm was done. And speaking to some former pros, they'll tell you that this happened all the time. You went out to hurt some players. Sometimes you would wear longer studs. You'd be sharpening the studs on the concrete in the tunnel before the match. These things happen, but Rooney's just admitting it for our entertainment on Amazon. He also talks about up until 2009 when his son was born, how hard he had difficulty dealing with the pressure of a young player and how he would go away on days off or a week off, 2 days in a row, lock himself in a room or in his house and just drink heavily. Now, we know Rooney had some issues when he was younger. I mean, he was 16 years old, for Christ's sakes, when he broke through with Everton. He was going to be the savior of not just English football, the English national team, but the nation. And in many ways, I guess he was on the sporting landscape because he had a great career. But he managed it by drinking heavily. And that's a huge concern. I give him a lot of credit for coming clean about that in this documentary as well. But he does say that in 2009, his son was born and his life improved. So really interesting. And that narrative about the pressure these guys face, we can say, yeah, they're well paid. They should be happy for the privilege, but it isn't that easy at all. But anyway, back to Derby County. Every week, it seems, or close to, they're going to be pretty close to the underdog. Might be worth spending some money on Derby County because there's something happening there under Wayne Rooney. Let's move now to North America. Oh, Xherdan Shaqiri. Xherdan Shaqiri is off the Chicago Fire as a designated player. Yep, Xherdan Shaqiri of Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, Stoke, Liverpool, and more recently Lyon, where it hasn't really worked out for him after a year or so, so he's moved to Chicago. But this is a very good player. So if you're a Chicago Fire fan, you should be very happy. 2 Champions League crowns. He's diminutive in that he's tiny. He's so short, but he's pretty stocky as well. He's quick as hell and has a cannon of a shot. This guy reminds me a little bit of a bulky Sebastian Giovinco. And we know what Giovinco did when he came here. Similar careers as well prior to arriving in North America, in that they were never the big star, that they struggled a little bit on the really big teams like Liverpool, where he wasn't really a starter very often. Giovinco wasn't really a starter for that often at Juventus, but still a very good player. And I suspect he will take MLS by storm. Speaking of MLS, seems like Josie Altidore, he's off, leaving TFC. An Instagram post on Friday saying, yep, thanks to the memories. And that's, think of that. Thanks to the memories, Josie Mourinho, Josie Altidore. If you're a fan of TFC, he is an absolute legend. I say immortalize him right now in a statue alongside Seba. There is bitterness, I know, with the way it ended, perhaps to a certain degree, a bad 2 years, just 6 goals scored. He fell out with management, but that will fade. This guy was a true legend at TFC, taking the club to promised lands, otherwise unknown. So well done, Josie Altidore. Looks like he could be off to the revolution. And I hope he does well there. I'm a bit concerned that maybe physically he can't get it done anymore, but we will see. Staying in North America, Canada, a record 33rd now in the FIFA World Rankings, and we know how important the FIFA World Rankings are, right? Wow, that's pretty impressive, though. They've gone way up from 38. Now, a few weeks ago, I mentioned how the odds to win the World Cup were at plus 25,000, right? Had some fun with that. Well, guess what, everyone? The odds are at plus 15,000 now. Yep, the bookies are getting an understanding of how good this Canada team can be. Give it a few more months, and they'll be favorites. So put your money on Canada and pay off your mortgage. Take it from me. All right. Albert, you there, mate? Want to have a chat about some of these upcoming games?
Hey, James. Yes, let's do it. So much news. That's Xherdan Shaqiri to Chicago Fire, Douglas Costa to the LA Galaxy. Yep. So much is happening. This might be one of the best seasons coming up for the MLS, but this also says a lot about the league and some of the power that they have financially now.
I agree with you. Yeah, it's changing, right? And how they're managing their money. The league's growing all the time. Expansion fees are absolutely enormous these days as well. We know that. And I think clubs are realizing that don't get the burnt out superstars. You know, they tried that route. It doesn't always work. It can work. I mean, listen, Chicago, who just got Shaqiri, they had Bastian Schweinsteiger once upon a time, right? Who wasn't great, but he still brought some respect, I guess, to that club. But yeah, now they're getting either very younger guys in South America, or they're getting guys still in their prime windows, be it Lorenzo Insigne or be it Xherdan Shaqiri. So I think they're getting it figured out. And you're right. I think it should be a really exciting MLS season.
Yeah, I love that Douglas Costa, the LA Galaxy. I think that's really an under radar one. He can be one of the best players in the MLS. But let's talk about the Premier League, and we'll start with the battle of the Ralphs. Manchester United against Southampton. How about Saints beating Spurs 3-2? They look fantastic. They deserve that win. But the bookies still giving United the big number here, minus 167. I understand they're at home, and you have Southampton at plus 450. I just don't think that they're getting the respect that they deserve, and I wouldn't lay that money on United right now.
You know, I must admit, I did put some money on United this weekend.
Oh,
and you know what? And they've screwed me the last 2 times I've done it as well. But I keep thinking, well, they're not as horrible as we're making out.
No.
They have a good game in them. Not 90 minutes, right? And that's the issue. They just can't put together 90 minutes. They can put together a decent 45, but for some reason they can't get the 90 minutes right now. But yeah, I'm with you, Southampton. I mean, they're a team that just are playing such good football right now. Not great away from home, though. That's one of the issues. No. But at home, they're outstanding. Ralph Hasenhüttl said this week that he might retire after leaving Southampton. So maybe he's trying to convince his owners, don't fire me anytime soon because I'm done in that case. But yeah, I like the team a lot. 4 wins out of 6. James Ward-Prowse, once again, we saw this week in that crazy game against Spurs with 2 great deliveries. Just what a great dead ball delivery and crosser of the ball. Che Adams is scoring goals for fun this season. Yeah, I like them a lot, but let's be honest, the big story is still about United, isn't it? Don't forget, this fixture last year was 9-0, wasn't it? I think it's the 9-0 fixture, so there might be goals in this one. Of note, what's really interesting is that United haven't scored a goal from a corner in over a year. What is that about?
The only team in the league to not do that. And they have the last guy to score a corner for Manchester United, Odion Ighalo.
Oh, was it really?
So that's how far back that's gone. It's unbelievable. And the thing with United and these offensive issues that they have, 3 games, 70 shots and 3 goals. It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. I mean, at some point, it's got to come good. And I
Yeah.
felt like in that first half against Burnley, fantastic. That first half against Middlesbrough, fantastic. They just couldn't finish their opportunities, and they seem to wilt as the game goes on. I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
confidence issue. I'm not quite sure what the problem is there.
I don't know either. You're right, because I mentioned the 40. I mean, they had 2 goals disallowed right against Burnley in that
Yeah.
first half. Rightly so, I should say. It was rightly so. But at the same time, something happens at half time and they either get the wrong message or they lose that inspiration. Another report, I don't know if you saw this on Sky Sports during the press conference with Rangnick. He was asked whether it's true that some of the players are calling Chris Armas, the assistant coach, the American, Ted Lasso behind his back. Right. And I guess the insinuation is that he has no respect there. But from my standpoint, no matter whether he's an incredible manager or a terrible manager or assistant coach, he's going to get that label because he's American, right? And footballers aren't very creative in their nicknames. So I'm not reading too much into that, but maybe it shows a lack of respect. I don't know. But yeah, there's obviously still issues there, big issues there at United. And I'm not sure Rangnick's the right guy. The players want Pochettino from what we're hearing, which makes a lot of sense. But it's always someone else's fault in that club, it seems. It's never the players' fault. How about you start pointing fingers at yourselves, because you've been a disgrace.
How much stock do you put into captains? I know it used to be a
Mm,
big thing early on, 90s, maybe even like the early 2000s. It was still like a big deal to be a captain of the club. I think of like John Terry, Wayne Rooney at one point at Manchester United. But Harry Maguire is the captain at United. He gets a ton of slack, a ton. And
yeah.
it's also because he just hasn't been very good. Is there an issue there with Manchester United and maybe
Yeah, I
appointing the
wonder.
wrong captain?
I think, you speak to, footballers, professionals, and they'll tell you that the leaders are leaders, whether they have an armband or not. You
Right.
know who the leaders are in that room. But the captain, the guy with the armband, has to put in good performances at the very least, even through example or whatever. Like Ronaldo's perhaps not necessarily a captain material, but he is captain for clubs and for his country because he
Mhm.
delivers, and he's a great example to everyone how you become a professional footballer. Harry Maguire's having a real tough season. We know that he's not playing well. Maybe you're right. Maybe he doesn't need the extra pressure of the armband. But the second you're told, you know what, we're taking the armband from you. Sorry, that can also crush confidence too. So
Mhm.
maybe he's the wrong guy to begin with. I don't know, but the damage has kind of been done there. If it's not, who is the leadership group there? Ronaldo is, we think, but he's also quite selfish, right? From his comments so far this
Yeah.
season. I don't know who else. Is it Cavani? Don't know. It's interesting, but there isn't obviously a strong leadership group there.
Yeah, the issues are obviously bigger than that, and winning seems to solve these problems. All these stories come out when you're losing. When you're winning, you don't really hear about these things. But back to the betting angle, I'm staying away from the winners market. I think Southampton could come away with the result, but I just don't want to put my money on there. Both teams to score looks nice to me at minus 130. 11 out of Southampton's last 12 matches, both teams have scored. And to add to that, United's only kept 2 clean sheets at home this season. So the theater of dreams isn't a dream at all. So not a fortress for Manchester United. So that's where I'm going with that game. To Everton, Southampton, Everton Leeds, which I think can be one of the games of the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
They're in a relegation scrap. I mean, we talked about this weeks ago, saying that they're too good to be in this position, but not anymore. You lose 3-1 to Newcastle, you're right in the thick of it. And Leeds, they can add to the gap now. They're 23 points, Everton 19, and really push Everton down the table.
Yeah, it's a huge game. You're right for both these teams. And you're right with Everton. They're really in the quagmire right now. Frank
Yeah.
Lampard's got a massive job on his hands. And we saw that this past week in their last year. It wasn't a good performance at all. Losing to Newcastle, who admittedly, have this renewed vigor about them. But still, every week we talk about Everton, Albert, and it seems I mentioned the same thing. Oh, well, they've had so many injuries and COVID. Well, you know what? It's true they have. And they lost 2 more players in that match, right? At the back in particular. But many clubs also have bad injury issues. At some point, it can't be an excuse. And you got to look at yourselves. And there's something wrong in that mix of players. And I don't blame Frank Lampard. He's just arrived. But you wonder, can he get it turned around in time to stave off a relegation fight? I think he could be the right guy long term, but to get it turned around right now, with the players he brought in, some good big name players, Donny van de Beek and Dele Alli, who I think could be really good for this club, but they've got to rebuild their confidence, which might not happen in 4 or 5 months. It might happen in a year, right? Which is what they're assigned to be a long-term solution. So are they the right choices right now? It is a huge rebuild from the very top. They're getting a new director of football very soon. So they're building from the top down. They have to find a way to survive this year, given what they're paying players. So it's big issues. There's a disinterest, it seems, among the group. I want to see a much better performance this weekend.
Yeah, this can go down as a really poor appointment if Frank Lampard, sends Everton down to the championship. I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know. They're right in the middle of it right now. And speaking of injuries, they're going to be missing Damari Gray, Yerry Mina, Ben Godfrey, still without Doucouré. And back to Ali and Donny van de Beek, Lampard wants to play this back three, which limits the amount of midfielders you can have on the pitch. You have two. You're going to go with Van de Beek and Ali? I don't trust them defensively.
No, exactly. Defensively, you're right. I mean, it's hardly providing steel. Both really good players, which is why it's more of, I think, a long-term solution for this club, not this season. Maybe you're better off getting guys who are tried and tested, who aren't battling confidence issues, who have been there, done it, have battled, have where their heart's in their sleeve. Maybe that's the route they should have gone. This January. Hey, listen, they got a good result in the FA Cup, right? They got a win, and it all started off great, and then it comes crashing back down to earth. And it's still Everton, and 2 games isn't enough for anyone to turn it around, let alone Frank Lampard.
Well, they've won once in the Premier League since September. That's when they beat Norwich 2-0. So it's been quite some time. I'm not backing either team here. I do think that Leeds can actually pull off a result, but the bet I'm going with, Leeds to score at least 2 goals plus 145. No Godfrey, as I mentioned, no Mina, and there's a chance that Doucouré is not fit once again. So, I mean, that's a big hole at the back. I'm not sure if Frank Lampard's going to decide against that back three and maybe go to back four to keep him a bit more tight and compact, but I do like that. I mean, look at Leeds away. They put 3 past Villa this past week, and it looks fantastic. 3 past West Ham. They scored twice at Stamford Bridge, so they can score goals. It's just the other end that's the big issue for Leeds, and I think they can really do some damage against this Everton team, and it would be horrible at Goodison Park. I can't imagine.
Oh, wow. Can you imagine? Yeah. I mean, listen, as much as they're happy about some of the names coming aboard, that happiness and joy will soon be eroded with another bad performance. But yeah, I mean, Leeds will go at them. Leeds love to go forward. We know that. 7 points in the last 12 games. Dan James scored 2 goals.
Yeah.
With Bamford out, that was a real help for them. And I like Dan James a lot. I thought he was really good at United when he first broke through. So they got some good players there, and they have the right manager. But they could also be dragged into a relegation fight as well. So this is really one of those great 6-pointers that we look forward to as the end of the season comes in sight.
Yeah, a lot of important games this weekend, including Tottenham, Spurs. Tottenham minus 155 at home to Wolves. Obviously, they just lost to Southampton. Very disappointing. They didn't look good at all. I still don't. I trust Conte a lot, but when I see Højbjerg and Winks in the midfield, there's not much confidence there. And they were so weak. You saw Højbjerg got pulled off at the 60th minute, and I think under Nuno, he didn't miss a minute. So it tells you that he's just not up for it in that Conte system.
Yeah, it could be that, because he was the one guy that you couldn't drop from that Spurs team, wasn't it, Højbjerg, under the last manager, for sure. I like the player myself, but he's got to be surrounded by the right players in the right system, and it's not working out for him. They're just so erratic, Spurs, at the moment. Yeah. The defense is just awful. Harry Kane seems to be warming up a little bit. Son's finding his form once again. So they have the quality, and I still think they are my favorites to finish top 4. I think Conte will figure things out, and given their games in hand, as I mentioned before, it's looking pretty good, but they got to sort out that defense, and they have injuries there. Dyer's still out. Davinson Sanchez hasn't been that great. No. So, I'm with you. I like Spurs, but I tell you, I think I like Wolves better overall. They can't score goals, which is pretty important, but the defense is so strong, and I know they lost to a 10-man Arsenal this past week, but I really like what they're doing there, and I think they might be the surprise package to fight for that top 4 spot.
Yeah, goals are a real issue for Wolves. 3rd worst in the league, but defensively the 2nd best behind Manchester City. This is why I think this is going to be a big struggle for Spurs here, because they tend to struggle against teams that stay compact and defend really well, and that's exactly what Wolves have been doing. They lost, unfortunately, to Arsenal. Arsenal went down a man. For some reason, Arsenal seemed to play well down a man. They did it twice against Liverpool, now Arsenal. Now against Wolves. It's a very strange.
Usually, right, Al, but usually by now, second half of the season, we have an idea about most teams and what they're all about and who they are, right? There aren't many teams you can say that about this season, right? We know, obviously, who City are and who Liverpool are.
Yeah.
But everyone else has huge question marks, including Arsenal, who look great for a month, and they look terrible for a month, and great for a month, and then Gabriel Martinelli gets sent off with 2 yellow cards essentially within a second of each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just craziness right now.
Yeah, I mean, top 4 implications, as I mentioned here. Look at Wolves, 34 points. They can leapfrog Spurs. They can get to 37 and drop Spurs back down to 8th spot. What I noticed in that Wolves game against Arsenal, they really missed João Moutinho. He missed because of a calf issue. Not having him in that midfield, they already struggle offensively, but he kind of keeps the shape. And I think that's what's so important to Wolves. And if he misses out on this match, I think I'm slightly going to lean towards Spurs. But I think the bet here is Wolves draw no bet. It's at plus 200. So if they win, you get your money. If they draw, you get your money back. I think it's a really smart bet considering how Spurs have been playing and how well Wolves have been.
Yeah, it's a good one. I'm with you with Moutinho as well. He's 35 years old now, I think. He's been around the block a few times. I've always been a huge fan of his. Such a cultured, clever player, and they do need him. But I guess when you are relying on a 35-year-old in the middle of the park, you've got to look at your squad depth as well. And I'm sure they'll do that this summer. But Wolves for me have become the surprise story this season, given how they started the campaign. New manager. Some of the other stories like the Brentfords are kind of falling away now a little bit. They're still great stories, but Wolves keep surging and have been so good. I haven't got the stats in front of me right now, but if you remove the first 7 or 8 games of the season, they are top 4 this season, right? So they've really found themselves under Bruno Lage. How do you pronounce his name? I hear it pronounced differently.
I hear Lage.
Lage? I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard
So
Lage. I heard on
he
Sky
said,
yesterday.
In his introductory interview, he's like, it's large without the R.
Oh, it is, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
not with an E. Hey, okay, I heard Lage recently on Sky Sports, but they obviously messed up. So, all right, Albert counts. Your opinion means everything to me. So, Lage is from now on.
Yes, sir. So before we go, we can wrap up after this. Your thoughts on Luis Diaz's Premier League debut for Liverpool? I thought maybe one of the best ever.
It was pretty good. Oh, was it best ever?
Okay,
that's a bit
crazy.
of a
I know he didn't score, but he right away he had a chance within the first minute. He just looked so good.
Got a lovely assist, and he was really going at players. To see him get the start as well this past week, right, with Jota in that front 3, which is maybe a real sign of things to come, given the contract situations of those guys, and maybe Firmino being moved out at some point. But he looks really comfortable in the Premier League, which isn't always the case. Very confident player, really exciting, and he had 14 goals at Porto, right, from an attacking midfield type of role, wide player. I thought he was outstanding. Now, often you see guys break through with a brilliant start to their careers, and then they Bebe jumps to mind.
Yeah,
there's one from the past, the homeless World Cup winner, wherever he was. But I'm not comparing Bebe to Luis Diaz. I think he's really good, and I think he will be a real good fit at that team.
Yeah, and look at what they have at the front now: Mane, Salah, Firmino, Luis Diaz, Jota. It's pretty incredible to see what Liverpool have. You know what I've noticed when it comes to Liverpool and transfers? They never miss. It's rare. Rarely. I mean, you can go back to Andy Carroll. That's probably one. I think it was like 30 million at the time, which was a lot of money. But since then, I mean, Suarez, Van Dijk, Alisson, it's just Robertson.
Yeah. Michael Edwards was a guy behind those transfers, and he just nailed it. Now he's left the club. They've got a new guy in right now who I think was behind this January, which is a pretty good window for them. So, yeah, they've done a good job. They don't all work out, but I think if you look at their last 5 years in particular, everything's worked out really well, with the exception of a few maybe.
All right, James, that's it for us. I hope you have a great weekend. You can follow James at James Sharman on Twitter. You can follow me at The Real Bert V. And if you want to watch more Parlay content, follow us at The Parlay and go to parlay.tv as well. Cheers, everybody.